Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Creative Leadership Podcast. My name is Arno van Oostrom and I'm here with Morgan, and Morgan is my co-host. I want to introduce you, but there's a
podcast episode that you guys can learn about me.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything about you, really, all your crazy
everything
and
things you probably didn't want to know.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's what the show is really about. All the things you actually don't want to know about people. That's what you're going to learn about.
That's where things get interesting. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's kind of true. It's sort of where you go like, oh, right. Yeah, I didn't think
they're
about that.
actually a human. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, that's what I like about podcasts. Not just listening to podcasts, but also, so they're actually human. Like, yeah, exactly. But also creating a podcast allows you to ask questions that otherwise you would never ask. Right. So
that's a great point. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It's awesome. You're like, I can just go and ask people things that otherwise I would not ask. And you can go, you can go a little deeper. It's not a 6 minute or a 2 minute or a few seconds kind of, I think everything needs to go, so, this is a cliche. Oh my God, I'm really going to say this. Yes. Everything's so fast these days, we have to slow down.
We have to slow down.
But yeah, I think there's a truth to that. Anyway, on the show, so Morgan, on the show, we have Satu Miettinen, who has been a pivotal person in my career, if you want to call it a career. And well, you listened to the interview.
I did.
So
yes.
What was your takeaway? What were the things that your highlights?
Yeah. So this was the first time I had heard about Satu. So I, didn't have any idea of what I was kind of starting to listen to. But it was a really beautiful conversation. And one of the things that she really mentioned was about the importance of local communities and just being really where you are, and whether that's getting to know better the people that surround you, or giving back to your community, or just being in tune with the local environment in terms of weather or atmosphere, nature. And I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me, because there's this an awareness that can come from that, and then you can start to influence that and also be influenced yourself by that.
Yeah, I feel it's almost, there's a tension there about, obviously there's the tension of, in the conversation, and the way she kind of lives. It's not just her job, it's the way she lives her life, really, is that it's so small sometimes and also so global. So it's this ability to be very local and very, very global at the same time. But there's it's almost too small. I don't know why. I felt like, really, you're a little village, your community, but at the same time, it's like, no, but that's what life is about. It is all that close, but it's almost like it takes courage to be that small, to not think in huge, big, multi-billion-dollar startup kind of ventures and things, and great, all that stuff. She goes like, no, this is actually what is meaningful, and you're like, yeah, you're right. But yeah, I don't know. There was something there.
And they always say, like, life is about the little things. And I think that when you're able, and of course, another cliche, like being able to zoom in and zoom out. But I think there's a lot of beauty and power in that, when you're able to embrace that locality of wherever you are. So, and that was something that stood out to me from this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And it made me think about, how do I do that? Because I struggle with that. I struggle with that. I feel that if I'm not connected to a kind of a global thing, and if I don't have ambition, and then it doesn't mean anything. If it's not seen, if it's not heard, if it's not out there, if it's not, which is at the same time, I'm like, no, it's not important. But there's this little, I don't know. I struggle with that. Like, it's a bit like if there's if a tree falls down in the forest and no one is there to hear it, is it actually meaningful? Does it really bother? Do we need to care? Not just hear it, but does it have any value? Who cares about the tree falling in the forest if it's not on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
I can understand that feeling. Sure.
Right. So we don't know what she's doing locally. So why would that matter? And it does, because it matters to her. and that's all that matters, folks. So,
Yeah, and
right?
I think her ability to notice the little things and to appreciate and care about the little things
Yeah.
also then influences how she is interacting with the big things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And obviously for her, she connects all that to service design. I mean, she's a
mhm.
professor of service design. She's the dean of the University of Lapland, which is such a great thing to kind of, in my mind, like, yeah, there's a university in Lapland. Like, I don't know why. I just see like snow and, and empty landscapes. But no, it's actually, it's amazing country, by the way, Finland. And they're so innovative. And I mean, she wrote the first book on service design,
Mhm.
which you asked me to write a chapter in. So this
Yeah, designing services and innovative methods. Yeah.
exactly, which is not a most sexy title. It's not the most sexy title.
But it's exactly, I think it's
Yeah,
exactly what you would want, right? How can you
exactly.
design service with innovative methods?
No, exactly, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It is, and she, yeah, no, I really think she has been a very important person, not just for me, but for the whole of service design, and in Europe also design thinking. And she was one of those people who kind of made things possible for the design thinking community. Not the only one, but one of those, those sort of core people in that
Yeah.
community. Um, okay. Anything else stood out?
Yeah, there was a moment where she talked about giving and receiving in terms of gifts and how
Yeah.
that, sometimes people give gifts and they're like, oh, and the person receiving is like, oh, I just received a gift. Now it's my obligation to give this gift back. And how we kind of have this mindset around gifts, right? And then she mentioned this phrase that you just have to trust that things will balance in the end.
Right.
And I thought that was a really beautiful way of thinking about it as well.
Yeah, the trust,
Mhm.
like it will balance in the end, and yeah, which is
I think that's a hard thing to trust is a hard thing to have. We want to be everywhere all at once,
yeah.
thinking about all the big things. And
Maybe it's also because she's very she lives in small communities.
mhm.
She feels comfortable in small communities, and I remember a good friend of mine. I visited one time in Canada, Rossland. That's for people in Canada. That's near Trail in the BC. But it's such a small community in the mountains, and but they would have like harsh winters, like a lot of snow, and you could get snowed in basically. And
Okay.
if you get snowed in, your neighbors will help you clear the snow. They don't need to. You don't need to ask them. So I stayed a few days there, and I noticed how everybody knew each other, and he told me things like that, right? When you get snowed in, you help each other, or if someone is ill and they have a dog, you walk their dog, and stuff like that. So it's also that you're going to need each other, or maybe probably going to need each other in the wintertime or when something happens. So you kind of, that's a given. You're not like, oh, really? I have to help this person, or you should have to ask people. They'll notice you. And if you need help, they'll know and they'll help you, because next time you might need some help. And, so that's a cultural thing, but it's also a small community. I think there's something about small communities that
Of
do
course,
that. And if
yeah.
you're bigger cities, you're more, which is weird because there's more people, but it means you can be way more alone and more isolated because of the number of people around, which is is it a paradox? I don't know. I think it's
a bit of a
common sense.
paradox. Yeah.
It's like there's so many more people to help you, but then nobody will because everybody thinks, well, someone else will be there.
Someone else will help. Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of that mindset. But I love that mindset, and I think we can learn from that. And I struggle with it because it's like, oh yeah, I'm someone who I know. I think I know my neighbors. Even the way I said that, I think I know my neighbors. Like, but then
Yeah,
a couple
yeah.
of like a few houses down the road, or like across the street, or someone in in my neighborhood. A lot of people
Mhm.
I don't have any connection to them, but it's me. My wife does, by the way. So it's my
Ah.
I have that. I'm
Yeah,
not too
it's an Arna
autistic,
thing.
probably. Yeah. Do you have that?
Yeah. I know some of my neighbors, but it's actually really interesting because my friend is really good at connecting and really values the importance of community. So I know way more of my friends' neighbors than I know of my own neighbors. And
Right.
my friends' neighbors know me. And we hey Morgan, I'm walking down the street to go to their house. Hey Morgan. Oh hey. And so I was like, oh, that's and it's so I enjoy going over there, going to that neighborhood because I know that I'm going to be run into these friendly faces.
Yeah.
And it is a good reminder that it makes when you can create this local environment that cares and notices and connects with each other,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
makes a big
Exactly.
difference.
It does make a big
Yeah.
difference, and just a small. I know we have to go to the interview, but still, I need to share this little anecdote because it made me think about something that was also so I don't know, such a powerful experience for me. I was in Accra in Ghana, and I was taken by a friend of mine to a small sort of village next in the
Mhm.
neighborhood of Accra, and so he knew the neighborhood and he had friends there, and it was a guy and who he knew really well, and he was going to guide us through his little town. And while walking there, and there were no roads; it's just dirt roads basically,
Mhm.
and no real houses in the sense of the way I know houses. So they would live together with groups, like their whole family, and
Yeah.
they would not have like their own sleeping room,
No,
a
no.
bedroom, and stuff like that. So anyway, we're walking through that a village or town, and he asked me so what do you think? What do you see? And to me, I said it's kind of weird because on the one hand, I see a lot of poverty because it's very poor. It's very very poor what I'm seeing. But at
Mhm.
the same time, I said what I'm also seeing is that everyone we meet, and we met a lot of people. You know them, you know their name, and and they know you. And he said, yeah, and they know their father and their mother. And he said, you know everyone here, and everybody greets you. And I said, if you walk around my neighborhood, I don't know anyone. I don't know. So it also feels really rich. Like you have this
Yes.
amazing community of wonderful people, and and maybe the you don't have the houses and the cars and and but that's so I was kind of jealous of that. It's like you don't realize how individualized we became in my country, where so again this power of community and people, and it's weird because I think I'm totally autistic. So I really like to be on my own and do my
Sure,
I
sure.
don't.
Some people have this, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I walk around in my town, I won't even recognize my own mother because I don't
Yeah,
so
don't look at people's faces.
yeah, I don't know why. It's just how it is. But then again, so we think about locality and community and people and what's of real value.
Mhm.
If you experience those kind of communities, I don't know, I think most people will go like, oh yeah, oh wow, that's really cool. You walk out
Yeah.
and there's people that know you and care for you and care about you.
It's a really powerful feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
they
not power.
probably.
Yeah. Power, it impacts power on a powerful level, like,
Yeah.
oh, somebody noticed me. Somebody.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they'll have disagreements too.
Of
They're people, they're
course.
human beings too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
of course. So it's not all that. So it's anyway. Yes. Okay. Enough talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Let's listen to the interview.
All right. Enjoy.
My identity comes a lot with my family. So, like if I would need to introduce who I am, I would tell that, I'm a mother of two children. And I think other thing that identifies me a lot is this location. I live in the Arctic Circle, so I'm a quite how do you say, like strong community member here in Rovaniemi, in our village. I'm actually at the moment I'm chairperson for the regional development company or development corporation. That's how do you say, it's like a position of trust, because I'm part of the Green Party. So I would probably, if I'm not describing like what I'm doing for work, I would tell that I work for our community here up north. And of course, one thing that characterizes me quite a lot, that I'm practicing artist, that I do photography and installations and performance. And I think this is also a strong part of my identity, that I'm all the time in this kind of internal struggle, where to use my time, whether to put it in the art or put it in the work or put it in the community matters.
Yeah, I recognize that. So much to do, and also, and actually, you started with the first thing you actually mentioned was family. That came really quick. So you said, "Well, it's family." That what defines me, which is also community. Is that something that that you've always felt like you're very, what sounds, so maybe it sounds like this to me, it sounds very local. So you talk about the place where you are, which is very specific, the Arctic Circle, you're very high up there in Finland. There's community, there's family. It sounds very local, very small. Is that how you feel that, or because at the same time you are also very global and international? So
I think this is like what keeps me rooted. I think that if I think about my values, I think it's to make sure that the family is okay, and the community is okay, and the local environment is okay. So I somehow, those are kind of core values, and what is very important to me. But then, of course, I'm very curious person, and maybe something what also defines me, because I think we always have so multiple identities that I think no one fits in one box. I'm a daughter of my father was a sailor. He ran to the sea when he was 17. He called from the harbor of Kotka to his mother and said that I'm off now. I got a contract in a ship and I'll be away for some years. And
sorry, how old was he?
Yeah, he was born in 34.
So how old was he when he went to sea?
He was 17.
17. So 17, let me think. My daughter's 16. So next year she give me a call. Hey, Dad, I'm on a ship.
Yeah, he was 17. Of course, it's a totally different kind of life, because he was born during he was a war child. He was a child when there was the winter war in Finland, and he had to go from door to door to beg food. And children of that era, they got independent very early, and it's a totally different life what we have now. So you cannot really, or I cannot really compare or understand. Of course, my son is also 23, and I don't think he would even do it now. And the world has changed so much that nowadays, if you want to have a position in a ship, you have to have a good basic training.
Which he didn't have, probably.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
he didn't have anything like that, but then he took this like an apprenticeship.
Yes.
He studied to be this kind of engine mechanic in the boats. And he was very entrepreneurial when he was doing this apprenticeship, and all the time when he came to the Helsinki, he did exams always, and when he was in the shore. And of course then came the day that when he met my mother, and then my mother said that I don't want to be married to a sailor, that I want someone who is at home. And my uncle was telling this nice story that that my dad was supposed to like continue and go to the sea, and then in the night my uncle heard someone throwing stones in the window. And there was my dad that, I didn't go. Such a romantic
So
story.
he said, I stayed for you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
He stayed and they got married, but then it was in his blood to go around the world. So he took a position as a he went into marketing things and into sales, and he was selling this kind of hardcore machinery and refrigerating systems. So all the time when I was growing up, he was traveling,
but he wasn't on a ship. So your mother couldn't complain.
Yeah.
Said, I'm not sailing. You're still leaving all the time.
Yeah.
So well, but that's a beautiful story. And what about your mother? Where did your mother come from, and how did they meet actually?
Yeah, my mom was one child of many coming from a farm life, and their life was around farming. And I suppose for my mother it was more comfortable, this how do you say, home and taking care of home. My mother was actually like a housewife. She stayed at home and took care of us kids, and I don't think that kind of thing even exists anymore. That but I suppose for children it's a luxury that you can have that kind of childhood that you have someone taking care of you, and you can focus being a child and so on. So they had how do you say, they were different characters. My mom took care of the house, and my dad did his travels, and somewhere there they had a common ground where to meet. But it was interesting to grow up in that family. And I remember when I did my first travels, I did my practical training in South America. And I went there, and then when I told my parents this grand plan that I want to go there and be 7 months I was in this small town called Pucallpa in the behind of it was dry, a jungle town in Amazon jungle, and they had this kind of painting school called Uskoajar, which was philanthropical school to learn how to paint the plants and animals in Amazonas. And my dad was very why are you going there? That there's nothing for you to see. I've been there already. There's nothing
I checked it.
for you to see.
Yes, I saw everything, so you can stay home. So but I think it was his fault. It's his DNA.
It was. I think it's in DNA that
So, but go back a little bit, because you said first where were you born? Where did your parents live when you were born?
Yeah, I was born. My father's family comes from Lakeside, from Savo area.
Okay.
And my mom's family comes from Häme, near Tampere. So when I was born actually in Helsinki, where my parents were working during the time. But my family changed location. We moved a lot
Right.
when I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah.
So if someone asks this, that where where I come from, I
Mm-hmm.
would usually say that I come from Eastern Finland, because there I have the strongest family home. That is
Yeah.
how I identify with this. How do you say, people from this kind of lakeside
Right. Okay.
region?
Yeah. But you've moved around a lot as a kid,
Yeah,
and so when did you kind of start it? Because you went to South America, but where did that start? That the interests in art and design and creativity, and where was it something as a kid you already had that in you?
Yeah. I had it as a kid. I think I was, I was, when I was a kid, I was actually, very interested in drama and acting
Oh,
and
right.
things
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was also, I was interested basically many kinds of performative arts. But then for some reason I started drawing and do visual
Mm-hmm.
things. So I did I was in high school, which was like, how do you say, like for art subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose I quite early on I couldn't imagine doing anything else but arts, and maybe then, how do you say, like different areas of arts that were the biggest struggle, whether to do performative arts or visual arts or design. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I chose design because I was thinking that I'm very practical, that okay, this will give me, like I can earn a living through this, rather than fine arts or that,
Okay.
that
So
area.
so that was a very conscious decision on sort of like I can make a living out of design, which is interesting, because I think there's been a lot of times where you would not think of design if you want to make a living. Right. So, but what about your parents? Because is that, or is there in your family anything like that creativity or arts, or you was that a surprise for the family, or is like, oh, you're just like,
Yeah, I think it was surprise for the family,
yeah.
definitely. Because
They were like,
I think there's like more of people in marketing things and in sales and that kind of thing. So it was definitely surprise for them. And I suppose, like they were very suspicious that can you make a living out of that. So that's why probably I decided that, okay,
you chose
definitely you can.
you chose the most practical part of the creative kind of space. Is like, okay, then design, because fine arts, that's such a risky thing, and being performative arts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I've been thinking that I probably should have just, like followed my instinct with fine arts and maybe just focus on that. But then I think I have found this, how do you say, like travels with design super interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
So,
it did lead you to, well,
yeah.
first of all, you went to South America.
Yeah.
That was your first trip. And one of and many, obviously. But so then you were there. What was it for you? For a young lady from Finland, all of a sudden being in the it's like the opposite of, in my mind at least, the jungle, the tropical jungle, and Finland. So how did you experience that?
I think, it was also, of course, this whole town was a small town there. So I think there was a strong feeling of community and quite a lot of trust. This small art school was hosting us, and of course, it was very different from what I came from, because, like I remember when we arrived there, and they had a small house for us, or small hut with floor which was, like a land, how do you say, like earth floor. There was no floor covering or anything.
Right.
It was
It's
really,
just earth.
like the bare ground. And then we
Cool.
had some mattresses and whatever. And I remember that we were traveling with my colleague Minna. We were, like boosting each other, that okay, we can manage this. And like I think during some next weeks we found like a real house. It was too extreme for us, and like then because it's a tropic, it rains every day. We were thinking that we are there on a dry season, like, but because it's a rainforest, it rains every day, but when it rains, it just rains more. And of course, it's really, like a mud on these huts when it starts raining and so on. So it was really too extreme. Then we took a notch up to have a, like a small house where you have, there wasn't toilet was outdoors, but that's fine. That's how we have it in many summer cottages and so on. So that was something that we could, but the first option was a little bit too extreme, and then we took it to something that we can, like manage, like we were there 7 months, and then you just get used to that. And I think it was, like this kind of, I think what I have gained so much is the understanding of different cultural contexts. Because, like we were Finns and we were there, and it was raining, and we, like made our way in huge rain and mud to the school. And then they were saying that, oh my goodness, didn't you use any reason that there's no school in this kind of day, that when it's raining so much and everything is muddy, then you just stay at home. And we were like, oh my goodness, that can you just stay home? And
can you just stay home? Oh, that's very interesting, because I can imagine because if you have an experience like that, and it reminds me, and I think I actually shared that on this podcast a couple of times, but this reminds me so much of this. There's a line of a poem, and it's written underneath the bridge in Amsterdam, and it's from a lady from the 1600s, and but there's just one line, and the poem goes like this: returning is not the same as staying. And what it's actually talking about is that if you and the way I imagine it is that you suppose you have a twin sister, and she stays in Finland, right there, and you go away, you have an experience like that. If you come back, you're both in the same country, maybe in the same town, but actually you're in two different places, because you see things differently. You have a different context. Because if you go away, this is the idea, obviously, of exploring and getting out of your comfort zone, and and so you can actually see more clearly where you're actually from. And so it changes your perspective, and you see it more clearly, or at least you see it differently. Was that something that you've experienced in that sense when you came back, or you're like, did Finland change after that?
Yeah, I think probably yes, and I think maybe also why this like a local context is important to me. To like, I don't know, we are like in Finland we say that we are we are like in a bird's nest. Like everything is so well, like amazingly well, and then it makes me feel that I need to do something for my community, to give back something. And I think, like this, this, I think in US people say a lot, and also in Africa, that, you know, like you need to give back. When you receive something, you need to give back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling that, you know, like more I give back, the more I get. And you know, like to be somewhere else, you understand that how hugely you have. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I have a very good colleague, Chinese lady Gao Bo, and you know, she's always saying that you were born under lucky stars, that it's you know, like how do you say, like maybe a little bit of Chinese mythology, but I kind of like this idea because I feel that, you know, like wherever I have went, I've been safe and always receiving so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good philosophy, that, you know, like if you give back, you always get more than you give.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's some
Totally
kind
agree.
of nice principle.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important, actually. In a way, although it's probably there's probably not a direct connection, but in my mind, that's actually, if you think about your father and your family being in marketing, to me, actually, if you want to, nowadays, you know, it's about giving of real value, and then you receive something back, which is, you know, it's not. So if you want to position yourself somewhere, or as a person, as a company, as an organization, don't think about taking, think about giving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about giving. What can you give? And having the trust that because you give, you will receive more back, because it's and it's a psychological principle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That people they owe you something. And if you're not, but it has to be genuine. So it hasn't been, so it's not a trick.
Yeah.
But I think that's a principle that goes for everything in life. And I totally agree. I think it's because you think that way, you will also, people will connect to you in a different way, and you will connect to different people, and people will be, you know, we will respond differently to you because you give value, and then people want to give you value back, which makes sense. And if they don't, you know, that's okay. It wouldn't have been a good relationship anyway. So it's a very simple principle, but hard to do because it takes trust and faith,
Yeah.
right? So, and letting go of like, I give and I don't ask anything back.
Yeah.
And for a lot of sort of more, you know, so what people would call rational kind of people, they'll go like, oh, you know, that's so fluffy. That doesn't work. You know, so there's a cynical, you know, there's a lot of cynicism in people in business and societies where it's more about taking than giving. So
I think that's excellent analogy, and you know, it reminds me also like a lot. It's very much related to the you know, like several, how do you say, like indigenous thinking. I have a colleague here at the University, Rauna Kuokkanen, who is our Sami professor. And she has written a book about this, you know, like which is about the logic of the gift, like comparing a little bit like how us, how do you say, like Western people or mainstream people think about giving gift and what it means in indigenous context. And that's a beautiful book, and how she explains it, that, you know, like in this kind of, how do you say, like a Western thinking, we many times cannot allow this logic of a gift. When we give a gift, or if we receive a gift, we feel in debt. Someone gives us something, so we feel that we need to give something there, that we balance it right away, that we are seeking some kind of balance, that if I receive that, then, you know, I need to give back an equivalent amount, more or less. But then in indigenous context, you can receive and you trust that in time it will balance.
Right. Exactly.
Which is a little bit different logic, that there's not direct reciprocity but you trust that the time and context will balance it, and you don't worry about, how do you say, like measuring something exactly equivalent to return it right now, but it will be balancing, so you can receive and be happy about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't feel debt, but you know, it will play out in time, you know, and I think that's also, I somehow, I don't explain it as good as she does, but I love this idea that, you know, like that also, that, you know, like you don't have to feel debt. And I think we feel many times guilty. You don't have to feel in debt and guilty, but you can be happy to receive. And it doesn't have to be this direct. Maybe you give back to someone else, and that will in the end sort it out.
No, exactly. And I think even the one who gives the gift, in sort of in a lot of Western culture, if you don't want to insult someone, or you don't want to make someone feel guilty, so you think about what to give, and then you're already kind of in that system of, if I give something to someone, they feel maybe they have to give something back to me. So you kind of, you know, so you won't give something that person feels that they they're kind of they owe you something. So there's this whole interplay, this whole, you know, that's really interesting, because if you let go of that, the gift that you can give is also different, because you don't, you know, it's not a burden on the other person. So I think that whole system, and I you know, I use that principle in when I created my company, at the sort of Design Thinkers. When I created, that was sort of my whole idea of, I'm just going to give away my brand and my company to anyone I trust, and who wants to kind of, you know, be part of this, and I don't ask anything back. You know, it's like, you want to have the brand in your country? There you go. Here it is, and I'm going to help you. But and I'm not asking anything back. But that led to a system where we kind of felt that we were a community, and we took care of each other. So it's more about, you become a sort of a community of care. You want to take care of each other, whether it's a direct, like a, you know, value exchange, that, you know, that wasn't really relevant. It's more like, we're there for each other, because I think that is something that will happen, that if then you really need something, those people will be there for you. You know, and not because they gave you something, but because you have a different relationship of taking care of each other, and trust, and so I think this is why probably it's about community again, real community, and how people take care of each other, and what you give to each other in a community is probably very different than in very individualized sort of society, where that idea of giving value, giving something to people, is more like a transaction almost.
I think that sounds beautiful. I think it is really, it's actually, you know, like you have done this logic, because that is how it works. And I think, you know, like when in life you trust in that, you gain a lot, and you don't, I think somehow I think the most valuable thing for me has been that I've been, how do you say, like lucky enough to learn about, you know, like something like this, or understand this. Like what I have been recently interested is this thinking about not universe but pluriverse, that we can have like many value systems and many kinds of let's say this kind of receiving gift, this kind of philosophical systems in place. And it's not only like one system, but it is many. And I think that if somehow you are able to accept that and receive that, you get so much more out of everything. You know, like that you won't try to force one system world, but you kind of enjoy that there are several ways to do things. And I think that's real somehow valuable learnings that I have learned, that like these systems do exist, and it's not only what we know, but there are things that you don't know, and they can surprise you.
And which is so wonderful, because just think about a world where you can never be surprised and everything is exactly like you, and you can't travel. And so just going a little bit back into the storyline of you went to South America. You discovered there's a new way of living, and there's but which similarities, because there's a community, this small village, but they have different logic, different nature, obviously. So which also changes sort of the way you live in a way. What happened next? Because you came back to Finland.
Yeah, I came back to Finland, and I finished my first degree, my BA. Then just by coincidence, there was a job opening here up north. It was around textile tourism, that like how you can create services around crafts making and tourism. And it was this, I think it was one of those first European initiatives. There was Isle of Crete and northern Portugal and the Netherlands, Tilburg community, Tilburg city was there. And I applied this job because I was, like at that point I was thinking, this is excellent job. You get to travel, and there's the crafts making, because my first profession is textile designer. So I was thinking that there's all the plus in this this job, and I applied, and I was selected for the job. And then my job was to create textile or crafts routes up north for the tourists. That create these kind of agendas that mostly people who are thriving here, they discover these locations, and then little bit think that how they can participate, what is the gain for them meeting these crafts people, and that was service design. But of course I didn't know then that it was service design, but this is what I started doing. And then later I discovered that there's a thing called service design, and it's very close to this content. And I did that for a while, and then I studied some more. I actually did these crafts routes also in Ostrobothnia in southern Finland, and because that I became specialized in how to build this kind of a tourism service and connect the creative production and the tourism. And I think I did that, I don't know, maybe 5 years altogether. And at the side, I also progressed my studies, and I did my MA in craft design. And then just by coincidence, I noticed that the university, that they are looking for someone to work at the Finnish embassy in Namibia, in Windhoek.
Yes. And
then I applied that, and I received that position. And from that, it was 2000 when I was first time in Namibia. And that has carried a long way. I'm now in November, end of November, I will be again visiting Namibia. I don't know how many.
Yeah, I remember that you've been there. Yeah. A lot. That had a big impact on you.
That had, and there I found beautiful colleagues and friends, and there we worked together. We did lots of things, this kind of a tourism promotion, and then we tried to promote local young designers, and we created a brand called Pampili for these entrepreneurs, and that was good thing that took off, and this it gave a kind of, how do you say, like a support network to local designers, and opened door for them to travel to Finland and travel to some locations to see, like visit some fashion shows and trade fairs, and that was really interesting. Maybe more concrete design than service design, but still super nice thing. And then in some point I met Eero Miettinen from Nokia. And I think that was also one turning point, that, like I shifted from this kind of working with crafts and tourism and kind of small scale entrepreneurs working with large scale companies.
Yeah,
and
because
then,
Nokia at the time was very interested in Africa, and they did a lot of research there.
Yeah. And that was, like then I think I was involved maybe two or three these Nokia initiatives in Africa and also in India, in Bangalore.
Right.
And then I started doing my PhD thesis, and I defended my thesis, and then I started running this kind of, how do you say, like bigger research projects with several companies, and I think I did that for a long time, maybe 10 years or so, and then I was doing all those like service design books and
yes.
and
Well, well, hang on. First of all, there's so many things. So I'm pretty sure we can't cover everything, but I do. There's one thing which is maybe it's a bit personal, probably because I also think, if I remember well, Windhoek, that was also the where you started the family kind of that was sort of I think.
Yeah,
I think you have a son. My
son was born in 1999, and he was with
1999.
me. Yeah, he was with me in Windhoek and in Namibia a long time. But with my son, I was a single mother.
Yes.
And I was a single mother for quite a long time. But then, in some point, I shifted from, because I was living in the capital region. Then I shifted because I didn't ever feel home there. Then I shifted first to Kuopio and then back up here. And in Kuopio I met my husband. And then we've been together since I don't know how many years. 15 years or something.
Yeah.
And then I had my daughter, Ruth.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. I missed that. I think that's a chapter that I missed since we've met. So that's cool. So in a way, you're being a mother, also started there. So that's also part of your life and who you are, and what you have to also, in a practical sense, obviously have to deal with, because all of a sudden there's a kid you have to take care of, unless
my especially Sampo, my son, but my both kids, they have traveled a lot with me, and in 2015-16, I was a visiting professor in Stanford in US, and I was there. It's really, how do you say, like there's like two parts of my life, I think. Like with Sampo, we went all those, like African countries and whatnot, and Ruusu has seen the luxury side of the world. Like they have totally different idea of like traveling also, that like Ruusu is definitely having more kind of upscale of things. And
Yeah.
when I travel or I start making travel plans, Sampo doesn't trust me at all. He's always checking out that what kind of accommodation is that? And very suspicious that, okay, is she taking us somewhere, like, because, like with Sampo, of course, I was, like a student or working with
Yes.
minimum wage or having
Exactly.
like very short contracts. When we were traveling, like I was always looking for the cheap options and,
Yeah.
like how to save money and so on. So, like we didn't, we never, like stayed in some fancy hotels or something, but some, like bed and breakfast or something, something like that.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, well, so so many things have changed, but so I remember. So I also wanted to kind of I wanted to stop at Kuopio a little bit because that's where we met, right? Because to me it was a very interesting moment. Also, because that was my first. Actually, it is the only city I've ever been in Finland still. So, which is sad in a way. Is like that's Kuopio. I've been there. You brought me to Kuopio, and but also the book, the first book. In my understanding of that was, at least for me, the first book that covered service design.
Yeah.
With service design so case studies and theory. That was the first time. I think was that the first book on service design?
I think it was the first book in service design.
Yeah, I have it obviously because there's a
there's
a
this
chapter.
cover with colorful stripes.
Yeah.
And,
it was the first book.
Yeah, it was first book, and I think it was well accepted, and you still can order that through what is it called, ebooks or I don't remember now the company name, but it's available as an electronic version. So
yeah, but the significant part of it is that it was a so from a sort of community service design community where I came from, all of a sudden, someone was writing a book about this, and there was a book, and which helped obviously a lot of the agencies as well, saying, hey, it gave it some legitimacy, and it gave it some authority, there's a book and there's someone who wrote about this, and that really helped. But also for me personally, when I sort of the first time I went to Kuopio to do a lecture, I think for students, which was very nice. But also, this is where to me, I can link many things that happened later to that those meetings you organized, because there was another meeting as well. Because I met, for instance, Mark Stickdorn when I gave a lecture on service design. Mark Stickdorn was in the audience, being very skeptical about service design because he came from tourism. He said, "We're doing that. What is this nonsense service design?" But he was there from his school in Innsbruck to kind of discover what is this they're talking about, and we became friends. And he then brought me to teach at Innsbruck, and that led me to also to Aho, the school university in Oslo, and etc. So there's so many things that came from that moment, and I remember I think it was sort of the second time when I was in Kuopio, you had a gathering, and there were people from Africa, there were people from Nokia, there were all kinds of people, and I remember talking to someone there. And I said, what's looking at the group of people that you gathered there, and I was kind of wondering, what exactly was happening. Sort of why are these people here anyway? What's the purpose of this? And he said, Finnish people, you have to, you just see how they're listening to everything, and they're having these conversations. They don't say much, but they're listening. And in due time, you'll see some of this is all of a sudden there's this thing, and it came from here, It came from these meetings. They bring these people together and they listen, and they're and I thought, yeah, I think this is happening. But it's also happened. It happened to me because of all these. I can't even begin to kind of mention all the people that I met there and then that were important to me. So I you have been one of those people, one of the main people that kind of sparked also my career. So because it all of a sudden there was like, there's a book and there's a thing and there's these connections that you make. So if you think about those, what was sort of, now I'm going to ask you, so what exactly, what was what were you planning to do? What was the setup there? What was the, when you were in Kuopio and bring all these people together? How did that start? What was that in your mind?
Yeah, I think those gatherings were really wonderful. If I go back there, I think that was like, I remember there was Rieta from South Africa, from Cape Town also, and her students from CPUT, and I think there was like a gathering where several projects came together, because like other thing was this, we were funded a lot by the Finnish Fund of Technology and Innovation that nowadays is Business Finland. And I would say that the main thing was to learn, learn from each other's. I think it was mostly about learning, and I think this is exactly this, somehow the idea that, if you throw something in the wind, you will get something back.
No, exactly.
That you have to kind of, I think for me, I've been able to stand this kind of ambiguity. You don't have to know for exactly what is. I suppose we have had some kind of exact story for people funding us, that what is the purpose of this, and what is the agenda, and even some deliverables described or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even remember anymore what those have been, but I'm thinking that the learning was the most, at least now I feel that learning was for me the main thing, that it was so interesting to hear everybody's stories and see how they understood service design. And then I somehow think that for me, it has always been quite important that you don't look it only from this kind of, how do you say, like white, Western, middle-aged perspective. But you understand that the view should always be somehow global, because there are these different value systems and different values and different needs. Because I think this is the main, somehow, what maybe even irritates me sometimes, that it's so easy to go into this mode that everyone has the same need than I have, which is somehow, I think, like what is the challenge of service design, that you should somehow figure out these ways that you don't only jump into somebody's shoes, but you try to feel the world through their emotions and through their values. And somehow I think that if you think the recent years, like what took place in US after, was it when the COVID started, and like this kind of I think we are more and more understanding that the world is complex and that there are these different values. And if we think about this idea of pluriverse, or the idea of colonialism, how to decolonize, it's very uncomfortable for us who are white privileged people. And I somehow think that, for example, why Rieta was there and her students were there, I think that was, for me, I think it was important, because then,
Yeah.
you know, like they get to also share what is service design, and they get ownership, and they get to create what is service design. And I, you know, because my role has been, now I'm professor of service design, I get to ask so many times that, please, could you define in 3 sentences what is service design?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or, you know, like, I
Yeah.
don't believe in that at all. I think service design is what you create it for, you know, like it's what you want it to be.
Yeah. How? But that. Okay. I totally agree with you. Right. So for sure. But as a consultant, you know, my clients want to have sort of a specific kind of definition, or so, you know, what it's going to be. So the sort of the tension between saying that's actually exactly what it's not supposed to do. It should not kind of lock it down. It should. That's the whole point of it. But if you're not, if you are used to a very linear way of thinking, that's a very difficult. I mean, how do you sort of, between brackets, sell then service design when you can say whatever you want it to be? That sounds like there's nothing. So what are you trying to tell me? So where do I start? How is that? So how do you feel about that? How do you make people more kind of secure, or you know, that they because they become very insecure because of that? It's like,
of course, I, you know, like I go into, of course also I go into explaining what service design is.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, but it cannot be too rigid, because then it becomes outdated. That is what I'm trying to say, because you know, because I think how we have explained service design for a lot of years already is that we put the, you know, like the humans in the center. We really try to understand the insides of the human experience and build the service responding to those needs. And we don't do that like theoretically, but we really use our tool bag to go in the field and understand what really happens in the everyday context. But I think, especially in this moment, the times we are living, that we have to understand that that's very, you know, like it's very, how do you say, like homogeneous, privileged white designer crowd doing that. So I think we need to really also take step back and be maybe a little bit in this uncomfortable seat and figure out how to challenge ourselves. Are we now really doing everything to understand that the real life experience can depend on what color you are? And what emotions you go through in that service situation are not the same, but they are diverse. And of course, we have lots of ways how to, you know, like bring out different profiles and so on. But I think the very content of service design for me is to understand also the human emotion in the service experience. And to really do that, I think you have to challenge yourself, and you have to be aware what is happening in the world. That of course it's cost effective if you always use the, you know, like the tool set that you developed, but maybe sometimes you'll have to tweak it. Maybe you have to, you know, like put it upside down, and then you can even come up with something better. So I'm maybe I'm saying this, that service design is now in that point that you should little bit, how do you say, like be in this uncomfortable place to push it forward.
Yeah, good point. So I think it's similar. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same, but so I've been now active in design thinking for many years. I use the language of design thinking. but it's exactly the same as surface design. I just basically, when I started, we were doing surface design, and then because of a lot of also US companies, they use design thinking as the language, but it's the same tool set. It's the same way of thinking. It's the same approach, the same qualitative research methodologies we use. It's so it's no difference there. I think that the tension is exactly the same in service design and all these kind of iterative, human-centric processes or design approaches or mindsets, is that it is, it's trying to kind of, it's starting to become fixed positions and fixed kind of processes and sets of tools. And whereas I feel that exactly what you're saying, that in order to push it forward to kind of, we have to keep redefining it. We have to keep redefining it, because otherwise it gets locked down, and then all of a sudden, service designers at the moment, to be, if I'm a little skeptical, there's no difference between a UX designer, service design, and most of them are just creating online, or digital tools like apps and stuff like that, and they don't really get the time to do real proper research. And so which is sort of the battle we have between sort of the traditional way of working and thinking and what we see as a new way of working and thinking. But there is this transition that is going on anyway, whether we call it service design thinking or whatever fight we're fighting. The world is changing. The way companies are organized is changing. It has to change because of the complexity and maybe the understanding of the complexity, because it's always been complicated and complex and chaotic, but also because it's more so because of technology, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all these reasons why we need to do things differently and think differently. Sometimes I feel we have to not only redefine sort of service design and design thinking, but also maybe even create a sort of a new language for it, and because it gets locked in and it's hijacked by all these people that said, they can actually give you what the definition of the service design in 2 lines, right? And this is it. And so I feel tension and irritation. I think you probably feel the same. An irritation of like, that's not what it's about. And how do we move forward? How do we get out of that locked position and find that that freedom again to go to those uncomfortable places, and because they're trying to make it the comfortable place again, and then exactly what you were saying. That's not where you grow. That's not where you learn. It has to be uncomfortable. It has to be painful. It has to be real, and we have to be confronted with these things. And you said a few things that I'm like, yes, like the diversity in go to any agency, not just service design or design agencies. How many people of color do you see in these agencies? I think you'd be really surprised how little people of color are in the world of design as a whole. There's a whole movement in the US, that is kind of about Black designers. They're saying, where are they? Where are they? And I feel the same. Like, so how do we set ourselves free from the system that is trying to kind of lock us in?
I don't
tell
know.
Us, Satu, tell us.
That's a tough question. I don't know if I have an answer to that, but I think like at least that we acknowledge that we understand that that okay, we became now the the majority, or we had our momentum and we took it, and now we have this. That I think it is. I would think that many designers are really curious in their minds that, okay, you want to push it forward and you want to see that, okay, how to do something new. I at least I have found this, that I always have this struggle that where to put my time, if I do arts or if I do design, but then I have realized that they will feed each other's. because when you are in this artistic context, it's sometimes easier to discuss challenging and uncomfortable things.
Exactly.
And it sometimes may be enough that you show the phenomena in the artistic context, but the challenge with design is that you need to come with solutions.
Yeah.
And that is the tricky part.
So interesting.
But also maybe nice part that it has to lead somewhere, because that's somehow, I think, written in design, that there is some kind of desire for solving problems, coming out with solutions. And of course, in the end of the day, you have to sell something.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I'm somehow thinking that the world is really changing. I've been maybe this is a long answer, but I've been collecting like longitudinal data in US with design in intensive companies. My first data set is from 2013, then 2016, and then this spring I was a couple of weeks in San Francisco, Palo Alto, San Jose, meeting companies and collecting interview data. And I think, there, one of the things which was very interesting was that, that it's not anymore about big D, like big design thinking, but it's about small Ds. How you do everyday incremental innovation, and how designers need to have real design skills. And you need to have a skill to do your actual infographic, or you need to do some coding, or you need to do graphic design, or you need to create a demo or prototype, that you need these small Ds. Because, now, because this design thinking or service design became so strong, everybody designs. Everyone knows how to do this 5-step process, or double diamond process, or, however you call it, that become generic skill. So designers actually need to have, also small Ds, not only big D, because otherwise what differentiates us from the others who all have command of this process of iterating and testing and evaluating and so on. I think that was interesting, to have this kind of, I don't know what is the outcome. These are just, I haven't really done the analysis, but these are what comes to my mind from the data and the interviews. That was interesting. Then, there was, for example, designer from Amazon Alexa saying that, designer has to always, when you work with the management, you have to have 3 options, and they will, you have to have 3 options, and they will, something really concrete things that, this is what designer does. Then first time ever I got this, in one of the interviews, it came up, this idea of the diversity and kind of white privilege in designers that hasn't ever emerged before. And I think the events in US had impact on there, that it is challenged who designs and how to also diversify that. And I think that was excellent. But it was first time ever that it came up in these interviews, that someone even took it up. And I think that was super positive and important moment for me, that it is there. There was also, what was interesting in one of the companies, that was they had created a support structure for design teams. That, companies tend to have design teams, but there's very little synergy, because they work in their own cases. And in one of the companies, they had built a kind of coordination and support there. And then I found it excellent also that in some places they had apprenticeship system, that, you know, like
All right. Yeah.
appreciating that there are
Mhm.
different age groups also,
Mhm.
that, you know, like because I think that also what I feel privileged because I get to work with students, you know, like there's all the time different age groups in my
Yeah.
workplace. And that was also, I think, excellent that there is this kind of system, how to really build on that and benefit on that, that there can be senior, junior, supported relationship.
Yeah. That's
So
really cool.
I think that it was really interesting kind of set of interviews. Of course, design thinking was discussed a lot, and there was still the same old things that you need to evangelize design, you need to pitch it in the company to get it through, you need to push it. It's
Yeah.
not still obvious that you get to sell it and things like that. But I think there were some also new things. Also, what I found, it was Indy Young that I was interviewing, and she's an amazing woman. She's a co-founder of Adaptive Path, and now she has her own. She sold it, and she has now her own consultancy, and she has written several books. One of them is this Practical Empathy, and then there's, is it like Thinking Models is one of the books, and the newest book is about the power of listening, like
Cool.
how much more important it is learn to listen than anything, that you understand your customers. And I also love her idea about those thinking models, that, you know, like unless you are not open to this idea that there are so many different kind of thinking models, you lose so much opportunities on your customers. Because, you know, like if you get stuck into one type of thinking model that this task has to be done in this and this way, you lose all the other options. And to kind of understand that these exist, it's also important. But she came up in the interview also saying that you should have empathy for your leaders. That if you think about this, that many times we have conflicts with the leaders, or even in design teams, you know, that someone takes decisions and you sometimes are unhappy with those decisions because you wanted pitch your thing, and did it go through? And she was saying that, you know, like it's such an important thing that always you take some moments to try to understand the motivation of the leadership, and instead of creating your pitch, try to create dialogue with leadership. And that's also something interesting, that because this is what happens many times, that you are pitching design and you are selling design, but how the logic changes if you have a dialogue.
There's a nice connection there, I think, to what we were talking about earlier. It's about giving. And I always see it this way, that if you look at your leadership or any of your stakeholders, really, and whatever change you want to make, what value are you going to give to them? What is it? What do you give them? So are you solving a problem for them? Are you giving them something of value? And if not, then, you know, then you should talk to them at least about, maybe you don't understand them well enough, because you don't know their problems, but then because it's about these relationships of you know, value, giving each other value and building on each other's ideas, instead of co-creating these ideas, instead of saying, I want this from you, without knowing, you know, what you give back. So I think that's a really powerful point. In a way, a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about the service design thinking, and the methodologies, and the way, or the mindset. I mean, these are really a lot of them, at least a lot of the tools and methods are qualitative research or ethnographic research methodologies, or so. I think that's also sometimes quite confusing for people. Are we turning them into designers or researchers? And I think the blend of these two things, I think, is what it's about. I think this is why I struggle with the labels always, like design thinking or service. We need them because it's a language and we have to talk about it. So we need words to talk about it, but they're so limited. And every time you kind of start looking at it more closely, you're like, yeah, but that's research. Well, I mean, we've been doing that for many more years than we talked about service design. How is this? And then the other things are crafts, graphic design. I mean, we're not going to. I mean, the CEO of any company is not going to be the graphic designer. That's a craft. We need those people too. So those are the things we need. We need these experts as well. But I think that the power is, and I think what you were mentioning with also being artists and sort of those. You're not only one person. You're many. You have many identities, but actually seeing sort of all your identities as interconnected and different ways of approaching things, and being the sort of and this is to me what I call creative leadership is actually being that connected, the generalist, seeing sort of like, yeah, but you have to listen. So this book about listening and the power of listening, by able to, but you have to be the connector. So these are the connectors. These are the people who say, you take this part of it, but then you might need experts to help you really, make sense of things and analyze that data or put that into a system or visualize that for you, et cetera. So because the problem with design thinking and service design has also always been like, there's no one person that can do all of those things. You're not like, are we going to? I've seen that in job descriptions, like when people try to hire service designers, and then the things that they ask these people to do is like, you're like some kind of superhuman being, and maybe there's one or two on the planet that can be both a researcher and a designer and a business consultant and et cetera. And a change and change maker and understanding change management and stakeholder, etc. No school is teaching all of that, especially at the time, because no school was teaching. I mean, there was a few people being taught service design at school, but so I think we need generalists. I think we need people who will be open and curious and in a way, you're almost like the embodiment of that. It's funny. You're both your father and your mother. You're a traveler. You're the curious person. You go out and you have this curiosity and you want to see the world. And at the same time, you're also very local and you have your family and you have the community and you you take care of the smaller things in life that are actually the meaningful things in life, and at the same time you're out there. And I think creative leadership is about both being able to do that, to zoom in and zoom out, so to see the whole and see the detail, being able to share that with people and to stretch sort of the boundaries of what people think is possible in the way you live your life and by example and the options that you give to people. And I think so in a way everything you're saying is sort of as a person, at least to me, that's I think that is what I call a creative leader, because it's who you are. And it's not a trick. It's not a right. It's just the way you think and the way you live your life. And does that resonate with you? Is there?
Yeah, I think you put it out there in beautiful words. I think I think I totally agree with what you are saying. That I somehow think that like you need to show a lot of experience and share things and enjoy things. I think like what kind of feeds me. And I think every one of us, that you enjoy, like you enjoy what you do and you enjoy the world. And I think for me, what always have rewarded me the most when you create this kind of space of trust, that you hear these stories from other people, and that is the reward, that when you realize that, okay, now I'm hearing something that is important to that person, and it creates a unique relationship, and that's always what you take with you. And I think how you just described this creative leadership, for me, it was like from today, it made my day. I think it's beautifully said.
Well, thank you so much. So, what about the future? What do you think? Because now you're in Lapland, you're the professor of service design. What do you see? What do you see happening?
Yeah, I'm now professor of service design, and I'm also dean of the faculty. So I'm leading the faculty. I've been now dean for 5 years. But I see new challenges. I don't think that I will have the same position forever and ever, but my term as a dean ends next year, and after that I will do something else.
You know what?
Yeah, probably I will do. I love academia, so I see my future here. But I think I now I've been doing a lot of how do you say, like HR, administration, management.
Right. You're a dean.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the work.
So I think it will be nice to, how do you say, shift this to something maybe a couple of steps more creative. And I think it's nice now. I feel that there's many leaders in our community who can step in this office. So I think that's also nice that, we are very sharing community, and now we have a moment when there's many good people who can step in this, and then I get to do something else. So okay. I think that's, I don't know yet what it will be, but it will be something nice and fun. I'm sure of it.
All right. Are you working on a new book? Because you wrote several books now, right? So
yeah, this newest book is about this. It's artistic cartographies and design explorations towards pluriverse. It's really tough.
The pluriverse.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's a good.
Yeah. So this is about the pluriverse. But yes, I have proposed. Like to Routledge's book on visual essays. So I think that is definitely what my next book is. It's more, collection of visual essays rather than collection of academic articles. And I think this is something inspiring and interesting, that how you can create meaningful visual story. And that is something I will be working.
Wow, next. That sounds awesome. I'm really
Maybe there's something you can contribute.
I would love to. I would love to. Yeah, of course I would. That'd be interesting. So well, thank you so much for the conversation. I could have talked to you way longer than this, because there's all kinds of stuff that I'd love to have your opinion or your thoughts on. But so far, I would love to welcome you back, maybe in the future, especially if your new position is clear, and because I'm curious of what will be next for you. So thank you very much for the conversation, and I hope we will talk soon again.
Yes. Thank you. I think it was beautiful to reconnect, and it was nice discussion.